Well, good afternoon to everyone. I'm going to present the role of women in combating climate crisis, best practices from Fundación Ecomujeres, which I'm the president of the foundation. In Ecomujeres, we strongly believe that climate change is a problem of excessive consumption that has been accelerated since the 1950s, as we saw in one of the previous expositions. Basically, we've seen this increase for different developments, the advent, for example, of pret-a-porter fashion, the tourism, the trade globalization, the commercial air navigation, massive home appliances offers, and planned obsolescence, also new marketing strategies. And in order to stop the negative effects of climate change, we need to change daily habits and also develop new products and services. As it was mentioned before in this panel, the last report of the IPCC show us that there is no more time. For humanity to survive, we need to do a rapid migration into circular and low carbon economy. In this sense, we need to changes how do we consume and produce products and services, thinking in a circular, holistic business model, having an empathic, supported, and cooperative leadership. In this sense, we strongly believe from Ecomujeres that women has the natural capacities and characteristics to lead that transition. So why can women play a key role in climate action? What do we see in women? Well, first of all, women today make up for more than half of the population. So in this sense, that volume can enact the change that we need. Also, women control or influence 85% of consumer spending. And since we think that consumer is the core of climate change and of unsustainability, we think that if we can redefine consumption patterns, we can also reduce significantly global carbon footprint. Also, women dominate world food production, so they can, on one hand, reduce world hunger, but also, very important, they can change the production patterns that nowadays are being used. Women now occupy more positions, key positions in power than they used to. For example, we had head of states, ministers, CEOs, so they can show that there is a different way of leadership and show to the world that there is another way of leading through the transition. Also, women, when they have a spare income, they allocate 90% of that income with their homes, their families, and their communities, while men only allocate 10% of that income. But women also, as Jonathan mentioned, have a big burden because women represent 70% of the poor. So we know that in climate change, most vulnerable are those that are more poor. So what do we mean when we talk about this way of female leadership? What exactly we refer to? Women have characteristics that define the ideal type of leadership that we need to exercise a transition into a neutral carbon economy. Those characteristics are, one type is a biological, has to do with the biological characteristic because we nurture and we give birth. In this sense, since we are the creator of life, we instantly care of life in all of the forms. Also, there are psychological characteristics that we have the possibility of emphasize and share with our community and our family in a more easy way. For this, we are better communicators and spokespersons, and therefore that can help to promote the change on the daily habit that we need. And the third characteristic has to do with the intellectual. characteristic of being multitasking and having the possibility of the lateral thinking. In this sense, it helps to have a holistic view and attend the needs that the circular system model needs in order to move forward. However, women are still out of the picture in the climate change negotiations. This is the photograph of the signature of the Paris Agreement in 2015. As you can see, only 5 women are involved among more than 70 men. So we still have a long way to go. In this scenario, what Ecomujeres do as a best practice? Well, Ecomujeres was founded, as I mentioned, in order to look a way of dealing with climate change and sustainability. And the basis of our assumption was that both situations were a problem that arose from hyperconsumption. And also we identify women as these natural leaders for the transition, as we mentioned before, because, due to all the characteristics that women have. So the goals that we put in as a vision for our foundation were to promote sustainable consumption and production, to educate on sustainable forms of behavior, to disseminate good environmental practices, to raise awareness about individual environmental impacts, because most of the people think that don't have anything to do, the famous "not in my backyard" effect. So we try to make them understand and realize that everyone has an impact on the environment, but they can also do something. In order to do something, we have developed more than 10 years ago a personal carbon footprint tool that is in our website, accessible to everyone and for free. So this is the way we try to educate people in this matter, in the matter of climate change, and go into the paradigm of sustainability. So which are the areas of action that we have selected to work? Most of the, all these areas, of course, have to do where women, not only the importance regarding climate change, but also how women can make a difference in those areas. First of all, we work in fashion, supporting sustainable fashion and designers. How? With parades, with fairs, with trainings and export opportunity. We facilitate and fund this type of activities. Why? Because fashion is the second largest polluter after oil and gas. Most people don't know this, but fashion is a very polluting industry. We also work with food. Of course, women has a lot to say with food. On the one side, being as a producer, and on the other side, by being a consumer and a developer of habits. So we support everything that has to do with organic and family farming practices. How? By giving training, technical publications, and create assistance. Why we work with food? Because food, it's about 30% of global greenhouse emissions. So it is very important in terms of reducing the effect of climate change. And the other area we work, it's construction. Basically promoting sustainable construction technology and all the new materials that are coming out every day. How do we do it? With technical publications and training. Why we work with construction industry? Because 40% of the global greenhouse emissions come from the buildings. And women also has a lot to do with this, can do a lot of changes. First of all, designing, for example, their house, and second of all, with the daily habits within the house, because 80% of that 40% has to do with the use of the building, not so much with the construction per se. Finally, we also work with entrepreneurship. We support the development of a sustainable entrepreneurial ecosystem, because we think the only way to mitigate and change the climate change problem is by developing new businesses with innovation and sustainability. Some of the results of our actions are we have more than 2 million carbon footprint tests done. We have more than 300 sustainable entrepreneurs assisted. We have more than 50,000 people trained. We have organized and measured more than 50 net zero events. And we have been involved in more than 20 meaningful campaigns promoting basically a change of the status quo. For example, we were the NGO here in Argentina of making a reality the banning of the plastic bags with a law, both national law and local laws. Also, we are the representative in Argentina of the Overshooting Day campaign. Also, for example, we had established in 2013 the sustainable, a campaign that we call INAS, which means Sustainable Girl Effect, that basically what we pledge for is that girls have to stay within the education system in order to continue a positive life. Otherwise, they get into a vicious circle and everyone is complicated. But by that, a previous speaker spoke about the problem with girls and climate change. Everything that we said here, it's supported by the history of sustainability and climate change. Women have always been the leaders in this matter. Most milestones regarding sustainability and climate change has been made by different women. Some examples of our contributions are, for example, in black and white, in that picture, we are seeing Rachel Carson. Rachel Carson was a biologist. With her publication in 1962 of the Silent Spring, she was promoting the concept of environmental education for regular people, for everyone. Everyone says that was the milestone that somehow started making aware of the need for information and education in environmental issues. Then in pink, we have Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was Prime Minister of Norway in several opportunities. With her publication of Our Common Future in 1987, she defined was the first to define the concept of sustainable development, which is still the concept we use today. Then we have Marina Silva, which is a Brazilian politician known as the voice of the Amazon. She was the first presidential candidate for a Green Party, and this was in 2011. She didn't win, but she got a lot of votes, and after that she became the Secretary of Environmental for Brazil during the Lula presidency, and she did great things for the Amazon that now it's coming back, are being retrieved. Finally, at the bottom, we can see Greta Thunberg, a young environmental activist whom was named by Times Magazine in 2019 as the leader for the next generations. I think is the leader for today. She was able to hack the global leaders with her voice, demanding climate change action now. So this is my presentation. This is the information of our foundation, Ecomujeres, and thank you very much for inviting us and for having us. And of course, I'm open for questions.